everything's recording, so I'm gonna clap, and that's when we'll know everything is gonna equal.
I don't understand what the clap.
So that when I hear that when I'm editing, when I
Oh,
hear the clap, I can line that. Like when I clap, it's gonna make a
oh,
that can line everything up,
and from there,
and then our mouth and everything will match the
okay.
sound. One, two, three. I can also do this. How y'all doing? As you can see, we finally figured out the introductory thing. You know what I'm saying? Found a live band. You know what I'm saying?
Featuring Dio, DJ Dio,
DJ Dio.
DOG.
All right, all right, all right. Just having some fun. We're back.
We are.
We're back. Um, we had something last week, but we had some technical difficulties,
To say the least.
to say the least. Um, we had these lapel mics, you know. And so now my dog is gonna come into the picture. Deal, go to bed.
This is her bed.
So we had lapel mics, right? And halfway through the engaging conversation that we were having, the mics just died. Camera was going fine, but the sound just. And so there was nothing I could do at that point except realize that I was suffering with just being cheap and not getting adequate equipment. And so I stepped my game up and bought something that was more than $32 off of Timu. And so here we are. I
Shout
think
out to
we're
Kyle.
I think we're ready now. I'm fully confident that this is gonna work. So yeah, here we are. Let's do this. Um, so how's things been since the first podcast?
We got new mics. Are you talking about life in general? Do you want to
Yeah,
talk about life?
yeah. We got new mics. We got new mics. We got headphones. But that's kind of obvious, right? Like this is kind of gaudy, kind of kind of bold.
This is how a lot of studios look,
I know.
except this is in our
The
bedroom.
lapel thing was so low key though. It was smooth, man. It was smooth, but I think you guys have probably noticed the sound quality is like way different. So I'm appreciative. So let's just act like this is how we roll, and we used to high quality things.
You know what though? You know
Uh,
what though? I do need to um, share how things were before we started.
what you mean?
The conversations that we would have about starting a podcast. How we said we don't need to have everything perfect
Yeah,
because once we start, you're going to see what you actually need. That's how people start growing and improving. Like we didn't even know you knew about mics. You knew, it's like
yeah,
you see it, you hear about it,
yeah,
but until you actually need it, like
yeah,
that's when you put your heart and soul into it.
yeah. I
And so
didn't.
you start improving. Now you could go back and tell someone who was us 4 weeks ago,
Oh yeah, I got lessons for you.
right?
Yeah, I got a learning curve for you.
So you could imagine how much more of a curve we have. We're going to keep
Yeah,
improving,
yeah,
but just starting leads us to the next question, the
yeah,
next search,
yeah,
and that's how everyone grows in whatever they're doing.
yeah. I think YouTube is great because there's master classes for everything. But I think my biggest lesson in the situation is just go with quality.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for.
Right.
So, do what you got to do and just get the good stuff and just be at peace.
Right.
And like I'm so confident right now. Like my swag is on
We're
like
going to talk for
2,000.
like 12 hours.
Yeah, like I know how much memory card time I got. I got extra battery in the wall right now. Like this is all stuff from experience. Like you kind of know
Right.
what to do. And so yeah, yeah, we here, we in this, we doing this.
Right.
So I feel like we got in a good conversation, but we also learned something. Also, is that we kind of had too much planned for them.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I was just like, man, each one of these things could be a podcast, you know?
Yeah.
And so we started off talking about just just our life in homeschooling and just kind of the real behind homeschooling and why, you know what I'm saying? And I just had more questions to go with the why, but we were on that why for a minute and it was getting
Right.
juicy and we could probably just hang out at why for a minute. Um, I was thinking tonight we could hang out at why, like why are you doing this? Like why homeschooling? But I also um, I like to kind of throw in there if we have time the whole just I don't know the whole rumor or the whole myth of homeschool kids being sheltered and awkward
Right.
and being not really socialized or sociable and I kind of want to throw that in there as well just to address that. But I think that tonight we're just going to talk about just our story about homeschooling and how we got into the game and just I really want my wife to talk to you guys about just her perspective about it and why she bothers.
Right.
Like this is something that we've dedicated our lives to. Like this is like if you can't just be like, oh, I homeschool and
Right.
like homeschooling becomes your life. But this is not an interview for me, so I'm gonna let you talk about it. But let's just get off the bat and just answer that. Why did you like? Why? What are you doing, girl?
You
Why?
know what though? I think you being in the room is very important because a lot of moms, especially right now where homeschooling is growing, is becoming so popular. A lot of moms are getting on board, but a lot of them are saying, "How do I do this if my husband is not?" Or what can I share with him? So people are searching for pretty much cheat sheets because the husband's not going to sit down and get into a rabbit hole about homeschooling. Like he just wants to be convinced or not
Yeah,
um, about it.
yeah,
And so having your perspective and how that might affect the home or the wife and her process and her
yeah,
journey
yeah,
or the kids, like I think it's good for you to share that from a husband and father's perspective.
yeah. And don't get it twisted. Like, I'm a contributor. You
Yeah.
know, I think that the father has a lot that I think that if we work as a team, you can say, oh, she has a degree in this. I have a degree in that. Like we might be qualified to cover certain topics in certain areas that the other might not be. So
Yeah.
like when it comes time to teach biology, like I might be your guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my thing. You
Yeah.
know?
And I believe we're going to get deeper into this in the conversation, but it's homeschooling goes way beyond your expertise, your level of expertise, or your
Mm-hmm.
area of expertise.
Yeah.
Because what really comes to the surface in your homeschooling journey is going to be your character. It's going to be your habits. It's going to be your morals. It's going to be your mindset. And so you bring something different than I do. So I do need you to help guide me when I'm lost or confused or worn out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or even the girls, like you have a completely different way of communicating than I do. You have a different way of sharing joy than I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just like, oh, you're a doctor and you're great at biology and, I'm good at other things, but you could come into the room and the atmosphere changes. And now there's joy in the room. Whereas I'm more of like a stickler. You're a like, let's jump and have some fun. It's like the room just suddenly turned into like a music
Okay.
class,
Yeah.
and it becomes an art class and it becomes like, let's use our imagination. Whereas I'm growing in that
Yeah.
with
Okay.
every time we're homeschooling, or I'm getting pulled into, I need to stretch my imagination,
I
So,
think I think that our mindsets are so different that you can appreciate that
yes,
about me when my mindset was interesting, and I don't even know if I've shared this with you. You hear that?
right.
Okay, it's gone now. But my mindset is I'm always comparing to public school.
Yes. That okay.
No, no, let me
That's
finish.
a
Let me
good
finish. Let me
that's a
finish.
very good point in
I'm
homeschooling.
saying, but in a good way, in my mind, when my child gets to biology, I just know that I'm more qualified than the biology teacher would be.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you add that to all the other things that you complimented me about, whether it be my character or my vibe or whatever it is, and you add that to the fact that I know that I can teach biology better than a high school teacher can teach biology because of my credentials and my quality or experience. I like to say, wow, my child is at an advantage here,
Yeah.
where others might just think like, they're at a disadvantage because they might not be a teacher, they might not even have a degree, whatever it is, they might see themselves at a disadvantage to take your child out of school. Where I just keep looking at it and I keep saying, man, this is an advantage. Whether it be one-on-one tutorial services, like it's one on two, like it's me, the teacher, and two kids rather than 30 or 40. That's an advantage. Or just because it's me and my grasp for anatomy and physiology or biology, like that's an advantage because I know that I have more than just someone who has maybe a minor or whatever it is that they have and they're like 27. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I it's advantageous to learn from me in this area. So when I say compare, it encouraged me to know that I'm giving my child an advantage.
That's with any parent because, the parent watching might be like, well, I don't have a degree in that. Like,
Right.
are my children at a disadvantage? No, you have something to offer that child. Like, I know a lot of moms who are great at showing what's really growing right now, like, um, in sewing and like things that I'm just dabbling in
Right.
that I'm like, wow, you've been sewing since you were 5. You know how to, make your own clothes and you have an advantage because you could dedicate so much time to your children versus possibly if you didn't attend or if you attended public school, you learned a lot, but even your time was limited with your mom or whoever taught you. So you're giving your child such a greater advantage, and you might say, well, my child might not use this, or my child might not end up becoming some type of scientist or a doctor, and it's true, but you're offering so much of what you have that even if the child doesn't become that in their career or in later in life, it's really something that stays with them forever.
Yeah.
And
And
you
that's
never know when they're going to need that or that's going to come up. You just never know.
Yeah, and I think outside of that, I think what's happening is that there's such a high level of impartation or such a high level
Yes.
of just that intimacy,
Yes.
that one on one,
That.
that I'm here for you, that you're learning from me, that it's so much more powerful than
That.
a stranger, teaching your child,
Yes.
or that stranger that's dividing their attention amongst, like I said, 30, 40 other people, depending on the size of the public school. But there's so much more that child is receiving outside of the subject area.
Right.
Because if we think about it, what percentage of the stuff we learn in high school and even college is actually life applicable that we
Right.
actually use in real life? Like quadratic formula. Like I still haven't used it yet.
Man, I wish I would have taken more mechanics classes, more finance classes,
Yeah,
more home ec classes
yeah,
versus all the other classes that I
yeah,
took in even grad school, like
yeah.
um
So the whole life application thing is not even. I don't even think that was something that was even considered when curriculums were even coming out. At the same time, there's so much more to gain from a child just getting that attention and that attention
yes.
coming from a parent.
Yes.
It's just such a higher level than sending your child away to an all day daycare and then kind of getting them back for dinner,
Right.
which is rarely intimate time either because we're watching TV or whatever. But let's start at the beginning with just the original question. Cindy Dossman, why did you decide to go this route of homeschooling?
Um,
Just answer that for
okay,
us.
to make it clear, I didn't decide.
You didn't decide?
I didn't decide to homeschool.
Mm.
It was my only option.
It's tricky. That's a tricky.
In California,
Right.
where our girls were born and where we're from, but no longer live, they cut off our choice um, to send our kids to homeschool unless we complied with their regulations for jabs.
The jabulation regulations.
Yes.
So I guess that's really the issue here is that as parents, we had decided or we believed that that wasn't an option
Yeah.
for us. We were not interested and we were opposed to that situation. That word that rhymes with situation. I was just like,
you
how?
need you
What's
need
a
you
good
need you
code
need to
word?
do you need to do
Oh,
your
oh
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
What
yeah, yeah. Um, so we were gonna get our kids. Oh, I did it wrong.
wrong one.
Oh. Here it is. Here it is.
You need
Um,
to put some labels.
no, it is labeled. That's the
Oh,
funny thing.
oh.
Watch this, you guys. We're gonna use this every time we use the word jabulation. We're gonna say, I was gonna get my child, but because they wouldn't allow, what do they call excuse letters,
Exemptions.
exemptions for.
No,
We
you
was
just don't
like, if y'all not
understand.
gonna let us, we just not gonna, we not coming to y'all schools because
We can't.
not even an option for the Dawsons. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that was
I got a
fun.
new toy.
Yeah.
But so now y'all know. Yeah, we just trying to keep it safe with that word. And I'm not even sure what the rules are nowadays
Well, I mean,
with that word. I
we
mean,
spoke about I think it was last week where we got cut off. That was why we ended up going the homeschool route. But after starting to homeschool and going through this journey, now we are in a whole different state, which is has completely different regulations in many areas. We haven't even looked to see if they can go to public school because now our mindset is so convicted in homeschooling our children that it doesn't matter.
yeah, yeah. It kind of it created an initial consideration for it, and I guess that it's crazy how that season was such a blessing in so many ways.
Right.
Like as many people can say and agree, I believe a lot of people felt that um, the C word with the 19 at the end was a blessing in a lot of ways. A lot of things came of it, and but even before that, that was just California.
Yeah, this is
It
California.
was just we were kind of with that dilemma, and so this is something that you decided while you were pregnant,
While
right?
I was pregnant, yes.
So what's interesting to me about that is that if you decide to homeschool your child while you're pregnant with them, how many years do you have to prepare?
That was such a blessing for me.
Yeah, you got a lot of preparation, a lot of rabbit
Such.
holes
Thank you, Jesus.
to surf.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah,
Yes. So I learned that I had to homeschool, that was my option. And so my first thought was, how do I do this? Because, you mentioned C19. Um, it has grown so much since then that now it's just like it's blown up in people's faces that you now there is someone who is homeschooling your child
so you're saying
since
since C19,
since C19.
homeschool, the industry of homeschooling has blown up.
Oh yes,
Just it's grown, it
but
exploded.
4 years before, 4 or 5 years, I was still pregnant. Before, you still didn't know or hear that much about it.
Right.
So I had to dig in. I had to get online and I started with Google, like
Yeah. Yeah.
how do I do this? And it's interesting because it's like now I could look back and recognize the Holy Spirit guided me all along the way.
Yeah.
Like there's it's because even though it hadn't grown as much as it's grown today, it was still big. It was still a big community. Um, and so there was a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different curriculums. I did make a lot of mistakes. I bought things that I never used. I bought things that, just jumping ahead of myself. But you learn along the way, and like kind of like
Like what we're doing
podcasting.
right now.
Podcast,
Yeah.
just jump in, and you're
Yeah.
gonna figure out, how to start. A lot of people taught their kids by throwing them into the pool. Um, just jump in, and you will make mistakes, but you learn from that. But I saw along the way how Holy Spirit was guiding me because the first philosophy I came across, I don't use it anymore, but I believe it was helpful for me at that stage in my child's age.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot, but you start progressing, you start increasing in your knowledge and understanding to the point where it's like all along the way, I recognized that he was showing me a philosophy that I kept brushing off. I thought it was from a particular denomination that, you know it's okay for them to follow, but I didn't believe it was for me, and I kept pushing it aside, and it kept coming up. It kept coming up, and along the way, because it's such a journey. Along the way, um, you start coming across the pioneers of homeschooling. And I'm not talking about like old school because we've been homeschooling since the settler days, prior to that too. But I'm talking about like the ones now who have developed curriculums, who help spread philosophies in an organized way.
Their kids are adults now.
Their kids are
Those guys.
adults, so they're veterans,
Yeah, the OGs.
they're pioneers, and now they're mentors. And so along the way, I came across those people, and there was just some people who I felt such a strong gravitation to. And now I could, like I'm starting to see like, okay, something's happening. And somewhere along the way too, we had a spiritual awakening too,
Hmm.
which is interesting because all of that is just such a part of it. Our journeys are such a part of homeschooling and what he's doing, what God is doing in each season. But once I committed to like, okay, I'm gonna just look into this. I'm gonna just check out their website. It's like immediately it was like,
This is
oh,
it.
oh,
Yeah.
it was such a moment of repentance.
Yeah.
And because you realize like you're being stubborn, like you're trying to figure out you don't know anything about homeschooling. Yeah, you're trying to you're trying to lead the way when you don't even know where you're going. And all along the way, it's like God is like literally like putting the plate in front of you, and you're just like putting it to the side. And there's such strong conviction, and it's amazing because it's like with every homeschooling parent, whether you've learned that you're going to homeschool when your child is still in utero, or um, you suddenly have to pull your child out of school, you're all going to go through the same journey. You're all just going to jump in and start Monday morning or whatever day you're starting, and try to pull out some type of like math worksheet or some reading worksheet, depending on the age of your children. And then along the way, you're going to see okay, this is too hard. My child is not getting it, or I'm struggling with my child. And that's a whole process of homeschooling. You try something, you see how it works in your dynamic and how your child is receiving it. And you see if it works for you, you see if it doesn't. So you end up possibly buying a lot of curriculums that you might not use. The good thing about this is a lot of them are PDFs. So
So let me ask you this, because it seems like you're moving heavily into the how. Um, do you have more for us regarding the why, our original question? Why? Like, do you feel like that's it? Like, oh, it wasn't an option, so I had to do it type thing? Because that might not maybe minister to the majority of people because they might not be in our situation where we felt like our hand was forced, or like if that was the case,
Yeah.
like, but do you feel like that's what you have as far as why did you do it? Like, not and not just why. Like, if you feel like that's what you have, then almost a part of me wants to say, like, who do you think you are? Like, why did you think you could do it?
Oh, I didn't.
Okay,
I did not
that's
think I
honest.
could do this at all.
Okay,
I do have,
and
you
why
know,
not? Why didn't you think you could do it? Because that's probably why people don't even consider it.
I will tell you the number one thing, the number one response that I get whenever I mention to someone that I'm homeschooling my children, and it could be at the grocery store. A lot of people will ask the girls, what grade are you in?
Yeah,
So many people
yeah,
just randomly, what grade are you in? And they look at me like, Mom, what grade am I in? And I
yeah.
was like, that's not really a question for
It's a
homeschoolers.
worldly construct.
I
It's
mean,
not a real construct. It's like a
and we could
matrix.
talk about like how why it doesn't apply to homeschoolers,
Yeah,
but that's a different question.
yeah,
But they'll ask that, and when I say or they say we're homeschooling, this is the number one response. Oh, I could not do that. I'm not patient
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
That is the number one
It's your testimony,
response
man.
that
Yeah,
everyone gives me. And I'm sure a lot of other homeschooling moms probably agree with me right now that they get
yeah.
the same thing too. I am not patient enough.
And that's everybody's
No,
testimony. Like
yes,
you think you
yes,
not patient?
yes.
That's my husband.
Jesus, Jesus
Jesus,
knows.
like
Jesus knows. And now looking back, I think, what's my other option? Do I stay in my impatience?
right.
Do I let my children like grow up?
Do I let him
Uh,
get the just because I'm impatient?
right.
Right.
Like impatience is a journey for every parent
I need to fix
that
that
we
anyway.
have to go. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. And what better way
Right.
than to do it alongside your children because they
Yeah.
learn about so much grace. I am so honest with the girls. I am so honest.
Yeah.
You have to. This is part of the journey. You confess. You confess that you did wrong. You confess that it wasn't their fault. You confess that you need God as much as they need God. You confess that you need him as a father as much as they need him as a father.
So we all going to school.
We're all going to
Everybody's in
school.
school.
We are
Yeah.
all going to school. I would go through this 1 million times to grow in the level of patience that I've grown since day one.
So if you think that that would be your answer, if you met my wife in the supermarket, and if that would be your answer, we're here to tell you that homeschooling is absolutely for you, because that is something you definitely need to work on. Not would you like to work on that? Like, do you need help with that? This is the best thing. This is gonna help you with that patience problem that you're confessing.
In every area. I mean, honestly, I think, yes, homeschooling will just reveal everything inside of you. You're going to, I don't know how someone could do this without God on their side, though.
You know what though?
I don't know.
See, the thing is this, because and you hit it in the beginning. It's not so much about homeschooling.
No, no,
When
no.
she talks about the stuff that bubbles up, like the stuff that
Yes,
tells on us,
yes,
that comes from spending mad time with your kids and like
yes,
being present and giving them mad attention. Like most of y'all not doing that because we in the system and they spending 7 8 hours away, and then they coming home and minimal conversation. They eat and go to their room, get on their phone or whatever it is. But when you spend any kind of time with your child, you're gonna be tested. Like you gotta know that much if you're not homeschooling. But imagine not sending them off or going to work for 10 hours or
you
whatever and
can't,
spending all day.
you can't escape.
You can't escape. And so there's this process that you have to go through so that you don't kill your child.
Even with your words,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
anything, with
Yeah.
your frustration, with your
With
anger,
life.
with
Yeah. With the book that you bought that you don't need no more. Like, it's an absolute uh, sanctification process
yes, very
that
much
that
so.
I believe is the reason why I believe that if Jesus was sitting right here and we asked him, would you rather us homeschool or send our children to public school? I believe he'd be like, what do you think, man? Like, I think that's when he would laugh. He would look
Right.
at me and be like, come on, man.
I mean, think of Jesus, all the impartation that he received, mostly from his father, Joseph,
Mm.
who we know was a very educated man in Jewish law and regulations. Like, so much that he learned, even in carpentry. Like, that was the time that he spent with him. Like, to be honest, we don't know if Joseph died or what age, Jesus was when he died. We don't know any of that.
Right?
But he received so much impartation from his father.
Mm.
And what are we cheating our children of when we send them away from us?
But I mean, I'm still trying to stay on the point that there's
Yes,
something for
yes.
us to
Oh, this
receive.
is this is
This
this
is
is
for this right here.
so much me. And I tell
This is for your
parents,
heart.
so it's interesting because when parents ask me, what can I do to start homeschooling? I give them books for them. And it's books from, veterans and pioneers who talk about these things. It's going to be about you. It's going to be about your your character. It's going to be about your habits. It's going to be about your beliefs. It's going to be about any cycles in your bloodline. It's going to reveal everything in you. It so much you're going to recognize it, that you're going to realize that math and reading and science, that's all extra.
Yeah.
That's all extra. That's everyone learns how to read.
Yeah.
If you attend my parents only went, I think my dad went to school for 1 year.
Mm.
He knows how to read. My mom too. I have a brother who's developmentally delayed. He could read and write to you, you know, but the character, the things that are in you that are going to rise to the top that you need to face and deal with, like that, people could miss their whole life, could go their whole life and never deal with it.
And if you don't deal with it,
Man.
then it becomes the generational cycle. If you don't deal with it, then your child is going to eventually face it, or they're going to just get it from you, and so it's just going to continue. And so you developing this curriculum of self sanctification is only going to help their process as they develop into adults, or as they develop and grow as children. And so it's such a two-edged sword. Like, it's so beneficial for both. You just have to desire that, but the only way we're going to desire that is that we understand that that is what's expected of us. Like, that is us working out our own salvation with fear and trembling.
Yes.
Like, you finding all that nasty stuff that needs to come to the surface and be dealt with. The best the best environment for that stuff to come up out is at home,
Yeah.
and it is in front of people who have the same stuff in their blood as you. And so you're going to see that a lot of things that you're dealing with, your children are dealing with the same thing. And so if you find a way, or you find a fix, or that thing is exposed because of your interaction with them, you at least know what you got to deal with and what you need to work on. And now you can identify it in them and help them with it. And so that stuff is more important than topics and subjects, and
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, or
Yes.
keeping up with, this class or that class, or
Yes.
whether or not I'm going to teach them sex ed, or um, race theory and critical race theory and all that stuff. Like, it's the character development stuff,
Yes. Yes.
you know?
For myself and them.
Yeah, yeah. And so you got to be interested in that, because if you want to just be like, oh, I'm impatient, and you just curse yourself and you just want to be stuck there and stay there,
Right.
then you just keep being impatient then and see how that works out for you. Because if you're impatient, then you're a lot of other things too.
Right. And that's another thing. So my character being refined in this process doesn't just help me in my homeschooling, but in my marriage
Mm,
and who I am.
yeah,
Like I'm growing and improving as a person just
yeah,
by going through this. And I've only been doing it. I mean, that our oldest is 7 years old. So I do feel, even though I didn't start homeschooling day one, like just going into this process and receiving it and submitting to the journey. I feel like I have been homeschooling for 7 years,
mm,
just in the knowledge of it. And so I've been growing since then,
yeah, yeah,
and who I am now versus 7 years ago is
yeah,
much better person.
yeah. But
I you could attest to
it's
that.
it's a part of your sanctification process.
Very much
Like it's
so.
a part of Cindy curriculum for sanctification. In addition to the work that you're just doing with the Father,
Right.
in addition to the
Right.
work you're doing and
Right.
studying your Word and
But it's
intentionally
very intertwined.
handling that. Oh, very much so. It's but that's just life in general. And
Yes.
so homeschooling is a part of your lifestyle.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you just get an enhanced curriculum for that personal development. Whereas the parent who spends maybe an hour a day with their child, maybe, and if it is an hour, it might not be intimate time, but someone who's spending like 8 hours of like literally like I cannot escape, like we're intimate, like I'm sitting next to them and we're learning how to sound out this, you know what I'm saying? That is just such an advanced course. And so if I don't know that I'm selling it or trying to sell this, but I believe that because it is, that's why I'm confident that because it's a self sanctification enhancement process, I have to believe that if Holy Spirit was to decide what He'd want you to do, like you might say, "Oh, I'm gonna pray about it." Like, nah, I promise you, He wants you to spend the time with your child, and He wants you to attack those issues that are bubbling up.
Right. Even
I
the
believe
fear.
that that's what He wants, and so if I was the mature saint, you know, and someone asked me why, it would be. I just really believe that this is kingdom. This is how He would have it. But that brings me to my issue that I had, or I guess the people that I might mention it to, they might not say, "Oh, I'm not patient." A lot of times it's just more about, I guess, how when I grew up. And I believe that it was just a different era too. Maybe those kids were weird. But that's where I'm getting at, is that a lot of people also think that this child is being raised by religious fanatics who want to shelter their child from the world, and somehow that child is just this weird awkward social experiment who doesn't get socialized around other kids. And so I guess they're like these weirdo awkward kids, and I don't want my child to be like that. And so I believe it was a cop out, but that's just me growing up, what I thought about homeschool kids. And then I believe other people who project that when I mention that we homeschool, I'm like, they probably were just raised like me in the same era where that's just what we believed. And so now that it's kind of such a commonality now, like, I don't know. I actually think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. I think that we were absolutely wrong.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Was that your mindset, or did you know homeschooling kids? Because I didn't know
Yeah, yeah,
any homeschooling
yeah.
kids.
Because I grew up in religion, and so I've been around some religious fanatics, and that's what I believe that the OGs of it, like they were super religious people that did this, and so I think that the parents are the weirdos because they were super religious, not because they homeschooled their child, and so I think that it's the parent. Like if you see me and my wife interacting, you can imagine that our children, because they spend so much time with us, are more similar and engaging and similar in personality and character as we are because they spend so much time with us versus sending them to school where children are less and less engaging now because of social media and because they have iPhones. And I, I tell kids all the time, like, I didn't get a phone until after college, but kids are not as engaging. They're not nearly as conversational as they were when I was growing up. And so now I look at it and I say, wow, my child has such an advantage because they're engaging with their parents or with adults
Mm-hmm.
who did not grow up in that era, who are engaging, who can put sentences together and get in deep conversation and stimulating conversation. My children are advanced when it comes to that. Like I have a 6-year old who will look you in the eye and ask you questions that make you think like, what did she just say? That's from homeschooling. That's not from sending my child off to some strangers and around a bunch of zombie kids who are on their phones all day.
And I guess when you say homeschooling, because it's like, it's not like, oh, that only happens in between these hours and these hours, which that's not how we do homeschooling. But I think what you're saying is like, that's from keeping them around you. For
Absolutely. I'm
that's,
saying that
yes.
once again, I'm comparing. Once again, that's an advantage.
Yeah.
Keeping them around me is an advantage.
Yeah.
Sending them to hang around your kid who probably doesn't spend any time with you and is just learning from other kids and their conversation level. And there's just so much less to gain and learn from being around a bunch of other people's kids than they have from when I can create and curate an environment where I can bring other homeschool kids around. I can put them in dance classes or sports or church school. I can do other things to curate and have an intentional situation where my child is engaging and being socialized. But I absolutely prefer to have a situation where I feel like I'm stealing this from you because I've heard you say this too. But I'm intentional about bringing them around other kids whose parents are the same,
Mm-hmm.
whose parents are intentional about bringing them around other kids who are in similar situations, who are intentional about character development and intentional about spending time with their children, intentional about who they spend their kids spend time with. It's just all advantages. It's not a disadvantage like I thought. And I stand corrected in realizing that if you are weird, your kids are gonna be weird.
Yeah. This is
It's
gonna
the
bounce
parents
off
that
of
are
you.
that it's
Yeah.
the parents. And so yeah, those uber religious folk that decided to shield their kids from the world. And it's not that I'm not doing that, but they're going to be more of a reflection of us than
Yes.
they are of, I guess, what people imagine homeschooling, as if homeschooling has its own reflection. When the truth is that your kids are a reflection of you and how much time you spend with them. And so those weird kids that I imagine were weird because they were homeschooled. No, they were weird because mommy and daddy was weird
Yeah.
because
So
they was
that's
super religious or whatever they're
that's
dealing with.
regardless of homeschooling or not. You know? Like you
Yeah,
you could you
yeah,
could
they're
meet
gonna
it.
be weird and get a little extra from school maybe,
Yes.
and school might help them to see that this isn't normal, or maybe they might see that okay, there's more than this. But if your parents are just super strange and I don't know, maybe second or third generation of that, maybe your kid getting out might be beneficial for them.
Mm.
But I think that I'm just publicly saying that I was wrong and I think we got it wrong about the whole kids being weird and unsocialized and the homeschool thing. Like we were so wrong that we were like opposite wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's the opposite. Like my child is more advanced when it comes to communicating and being socialized and holding a conversation. It makes me think of the kid that you just knew was raised by his grandma. Like he just was a little deeper than the rest of them. He
Mm.
could communicate a little better. He was around older people a lot more, and so that becomes an advantage. And so um, it's not what I thought.
Right. And you know, as I was thinking about this podcast, I believe it was last night. I was thinking about my own upbringing, and I grew up around a lot of people. Like, there's 8 children, lots of cousins. We all lived close to each other. It's like the whole family lived in one block. Um, I grew up in church. I went to school. Grew up around a lot of people, and yet when I look at my childhood, I recognize how isolated I felt. And you could you could confirm that by how shy I was.
Hmm.
It was, regardless of how many people were around me, like there was a fear inside of me
Hmm.
of communicating and engaging with others. And that came from home. So regardless of how many people were around me, because that's what, when we say socialize kids,
Yeah,
we
we just
think
think
like
we
just
throw them in
throw them
there.
with a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other kids and like
Yeah.
that's done, you know,
Yeah.
like my kids had recess, my kids went to school, they're socialized. That's not true.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
Your child could be at school with, 1,000 other children, and your child could still feel isolated.
Yeah.
So, like we need to narrow that down. Like you need to. I challenge you to pay attention to your child and see if the socialization that you are um, trying to build for your child by putting them in a bunch of sports, by putting them in a bunch of clubs, by putting them, sending them to school and possibly after school clubs. Like, it's not really about, is my child socialized? Like, do they feel connected? Do they
Mm.
feel loved? Do they feel safe? Do they feel, and those, when we're talking about like the things that surf up, to rise up to the surface, like these are the things that we see because we're with their children all day. I could
Yeah.
see shifts and changes in them because I'm with my children. And we could completely miss that because we just send them off and are busy. So there's so much more to homeschool than just socializing, than just curriculum, than just education. There's so much more. And another thing that I like to add, now that I, spend a little bit more time with other homeschool moms, I could see this character refinement in them too. So it's a whole different kind of friendship, even for us as mothers. And a few of them actually were homeschooled. So you could now like personally converse and learn from someone who we had previously labeled as weird.
Right.
And the thing is, like, they're just a little different because they have a connection to mom and dad, whereas we didn't.
Which is weird to us.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was completely weird. I putting it all out there. I used to bully one of my best friends because I thought she was sharing too much of our information with her mom. And to me, I took it personally because I couldn't understand that. Why do you go back and tell your mom everything? But now that I'm raising my children, I want that same dynamic and relationship with them. And I was like, this is how it should have been. And because I didn't understand how a daughter could have a connection with her mother and feel safe to share these intimate conversations and happenings with other young girls, like I bullied her. I was upset at her, and and even her forgiveness, even though I never asked for forgiveness, I would say her grace toward me, because we're still friends, is an overflow of that relationship she had with her mom, and I'm so thankful for it because she has such a good heart. And I when the Lord showed me what I had done to her, I asked her to forgive me, and she was in awe of the way I had seen her. I didn't recognize it, and now I do.
Wow, that was good. So when the art changes, we know
Hit an hour.
we're coming close to our limit, and so I feel like there's been an appeal weaved in here, all this whole
Right.
conversation towards, because I didn't think that the goal was to sell anybody on this. I think it was more about just kind of putting it out there, like this is what we're doing with our life.
Yeah,
This is what we do,
it's
y'all.
not really selling it. It's just showing how strong it has our conviction has become
Mm,
since we started day one. Day
mm,
one, it was like, oh shoot, how am I going to teach my daughters how to read? How am I going to teach them math? I like math, but I don't know if I could teach it.
mm-hmm.
That's all I was thinking. I didn't know I was going to be involved with this. I was thinking, do I have a degree? Do I have, the knowledge? When I started thinking of verbs and adjectives, like I would start getting stressed, like, oh my gosh, do I remember that?
See, now you're making them nervous.
No, man,
But she's saying she was tripping.
I was
She
tripping.
was tripping.
I thought that's what it was about.
Right. Right.
There's so much more
It's
to it.
so much
And
deeper.
my conviction for it, to the point where I told them, and people do ask me, are you going to homeschool them all the way through? And the answer is yes.
There you go.
Yeah. What are you pressing?
Oh.
But you know what?
Hmm.
Before we end,
Okay.
I want to publicly thank you.
Okay. I think we got a couple minutes.
I do.
Huh.
I do. You've been on board since day one.
I'm day one. Yeah, for sure.
Since day one. And this has been such a journey for me. I don't know if it would have been. I don't think I would be where I am now, and not saying that there's no more room for growth, but I have grown so much, and a lot of it has been because of your guidance, of your patience, which you're so much more patient than I am, um, your support,
Mm,
and your wisdom,
mm,
and your prayers.
mm.
Like, I've come to you at the end of a long day and been like, I'm tired, I'm worn out.
Yeah.
And even just being able to share that with you, like there's been so much strength and encouragement
Hmm.
come back to me from those moments. And even, for actually quite a long time, like you took a couple days where I would go into the office and you would be with the girls. And that helped me a lot, to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to do it full time. And I honestly, I pray for those moms that don't have a husband and a partner
Hmm.
that you have been to me.
Hmm. Well, I'm praying about my selfish ambitions because I'm going to tell you guys that if you have a spouse who is on a journey of self improvement, it's going to absolutely benefit you. You know what I'm
It'll be
saying?
rough
Like
along the way,
if you
but
got yeah, but if you have a wife that's impatient, like you don't think you're gonna benefit if she goes through this process and the Lord works those things out? Like you don't think you're gonna benefit from that? You don't think your marriage is gonna blossom and grow if you guys are put in a refinery of character development? Like I'm with that. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, yeah, if I support this, then we all coming out on top at the end of the day because this is not just about my kid being smarter than yours.
no.
This is about family character development, and in that, relationships are just enhanced. And so if my marriage can be benefit and enhanced from this situation, man, uh, I'm with it. I'm with it. And so yeah, if I have any selfish ambition, it's that I know that the process that we go through, in dealing with the inescapability of homeschooling children, there's so much to gain from that, but I've benefited greatly, in your growth that I've seen. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, cool. But truth is that I'm just like, I have so much to gain from it. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm grateful for the process and what it's done for you, for me, for us. And it's just so much more than just about the kids. And so if I could sell it, I hope I have already. I'm good. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's not even a consideration. I hear buses go by my house
Right.
every morning.
Right.
not a consideration.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so I want to be as supportive as I can. I think that I have a lot to bring to the table, so why not? And this we're talking about my kids here. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like we're
Right.
talking about my kids.
Right.
So
That we prayed for.
yeah, and so it's all about why not? Let's all grow.
Right.
You know, so nah, I ain't sending them off, and so I hope that we've said some things to inspire you to at least consider or at least pray about it, take it to the Lord. You know, find I know that there's other things that we consider when we have to make this decision. People are in financial situations or work, and the first start once again is just gonna just be pray about it. See what God says about it. Don't just consider what your wisdom tells you. Because you just look at your current situation. Pray for God to change your situation if that's what
Right.
He wants you to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so that's my word for you. Once again, that's what we do, y'all. This is our lifestyle. Homeschool and casting out demons.
I think a good topic for maybe next time would be about marriage. Just talk about, things that how our marriage has grown.
Hmm. And yeah, I guess that topic could be touching all the points. Like,
Yeah.
How has homeschool blessed your marriage? How has the lifestyle of deliverance blessed your marriage?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I think if Theo,
Show me the camera.
yeah, she just moved the camera. if there's anything, that's crazy. Like our lifestyle is a blessing to our marriage. Like we have deliverance ministry, we have homeschooling. These are the two things that are pretty much blessing our marriage or blessing our personal development. And that's the key, is really the personal development. But that's another podcast. So we hope y'all come back. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna play us out. You know what I'm saying? Talk to y'all later. But this was a good conversation. I hope it was oh man, we under an hour too? Yeah.
How did that thing change already?
I started that a long time ago.
Oh.
And so
I think
we're
could
at
still
57 minutes.
Okay.
And so I'm estimating that this is gonna be about 55 minutes. So, I'm trying to keep it at under an hour because you know how y'all attention spans are since y'all went to public school.
I went to public school.
I
You went to public school.
so I'm not just
You know what? Another thing about homeschooling, I love it. I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Man, I'm learning so much. Like one of my favorite things is read alouds, which we read books. That's what we do most of our day. We read books.
I think we're going to another podcast right now.
No. I'm just gonna say. I said, man, I'd be so hooked on those books. Like right now, I'm.
Oh, you be in the books that you trying to read to them, and you like, can't wait to get to the books.
Yes, I was like, come on, let's go have let's go have dinner so we could read another book, or let's go sit down on the couch. And, I mean, they're into it too.
Yeah.
They'll bring me the books.
Yeah.
Like my girls have books around them all the time, and I'm pretty sad when they're gonna start reading their own books. Like, I'm next on that book.
Yeah, they're right around the corner from leaving you out.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's something that I want to keep, forever. But I'm enjoying it so much. I'm learning so much. Like imagine going to school and having the attention span of a 13-year-old, 7-year-old. Like they had to break things down. Now, in my 40s, like I could sit down and I could read a history book, and it's not history books as in a textbook. It's in stories, autobiographies, biographies. Like, so now I'm just like, what? Charles Ingalls died of what? At what age?
Now you're trying to find somebody to talk to it about.
Yeah, and it's usually you. I was like, guess what?
I knew that. I know that now. Like, how did
That's
this man
another
die of
topic.
heart disease when he was manual labor and he didn't
See?
eat processed foods? And that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
So
Yeah, we'll bring it to you. We'll bring it to you.
We still under an hour. God bless y'all. Peace and love. Peace and blessings.
God bless
Shalom.
you.
Holla at your boy. All right.
God bless you. Have a good day. Like and subscribe
Yeah, that stuff too. Yeah, like and subscribe.
and share.
Yeah, hit that notification bell. That's what I hear people say.
Right, right.
Hit that notification bell thing.
We're one of those people now.
For those people know.